The curse of Broken Barrow. In the desolate reaches of Exmoor, where the moorland stretches like a sea of heather and bracken, lies the Broken Barrow near the village of Challacombe, Devon. A solitary mound of earth and stone, its surface jagged and split, as if cloven by some ancient fury. Raised in the Bronze Age to honour the dead, the barrow has stood for millennia, its silhouette a sombre sentinel against the wind-swept sky. But its stillness belies a darker truth, for the Broken Barrow is cursed, secrets guarded by forces beyond the grave. In the early 17th century, a man dared to defy its sanctity, and the spectral wrath he unleashed, a thunder of phantom horses, claimed his senses and his life, sealing the barrow's reputation as a place of dread in the annals of Challacombe. The tale unfolds in the waning years of the 1620s, a time when superstition gripped the hearts of even the stoutest souls, and tales of the old ways still held power over the moor. Challacombe was a sparse scattering of stone cottages then, its folk eking out a living from the harsh land, their lives governed by the seasons and the whispers of the past. Among them dwelt Nathaniel Grigg, a man of middling years with a restless spirit and a hunger for wealth. A tinker by trade, Nathaniel had heard tales of the barrows on Exmoor, ancient graves said to hold treasures of bronze and amber, buried with chieftains long forgotten. The Broken Barrow, so named for the deep fissure that split its crown, was whispered to be the richest of all, its contents untouched since the dawn of time. Greed clouded Nathaniel's judgment, and he resolved to plunder its depths, heedless of the warnings carved into the marrow of local law. To disturb the barrow was to court the wrath of the unseen. On a moonless night in the autumn of 1628, Nathaniel set out for the Broken Barrow, a spade slung over his shoulder and a lantern swinging in his hand. The moor was cloaked in a thick fog, the kind that muffles sound and turns shadows into spectres. But Nathaniel pressed on, his avarice a beacon brighter than any light. The barrow loomed before him, its cracked summit stark against the night sky, the air around it heavy with an unaccountable chill. He muttered a half-hearted prayer, more habit than faith, and drove his spade into the earth, the blade biting deep into the mound's ancient skin. Each shovelful seemed to echo in the stillness, a desecration that stirred something unseen. And as he dug, the fog thickened, pressing against him like a living thing. He had barely breached the barrow's outer layer when a sound began to rise, a low, rumbling thunder that seemed to come from beneath the earth itself. Nathaniel froze, his spade trembling in his hands as the rumble grew into a cacophony of hooves, a spectral stampede of phantom horses charging through the night. The sound surrounded him, a whirlwind of unseen hooves pounding the moor, their rhythm a war drum of warning and rage. He dropped his spade, his lantern snuffed out by a sudden gust, and in the darkness, he felt the weight of unseen eyes, ancient, wrathful, burning with a fury older than the stones. The phantom horses drew closer, their thunder deafening, their invisible forms brushing against him with a cold that seared his soul. Nathaniel screamed, but his voice was swallowed by the roar, and he fled, stumbling through the fog, the sound of hooves chasing him across the moor until he collapsed, sobbing at the edge of Challacombe. When dawn broke, Nathaniel staggered into the village, his face ashen, his eyes wide with terror. He spoke haltingly of the phantom horses, their thunder a curse unleashed by his greed. But his words turned to gasps as he clutched at his ears, blood trickling from them. He could no longer hear the voices of those who tried to comfort him. By noon, his vision faded, his eyes clouding as if veiled by the fog that had cloaked the barrow, and he groped blindly at the air, muttering of hooves that still echoed in his mind. Within a fortnight, Nathaniel Grigg was dead, his body wasting away as if the life had been drained from him by the unseen riders of the Broken Barrow. The village buried him in the churchyard of St. Andrew's, but his grave was marked with a simple stone. No epitaph to tempt fate, for all knew his fate had been sealed by the curse he'd awakened. When dawn broke, Nathaniel staggered into the village, his face ashen, his eyes wide with terror. He spoke haltingly of the phantom horses, their thunder a curse unleashed by his greed. But his words turned to gasps as he clutched at his ears, blood trickling from them. He could no longer hear the voices of those who tried to comfort him. By noon, his vision faded, his eyes clouding as if veiled by the fog that had cloaked the barrow, and he groped blindly at the air, muttering of hooves that still echoed in his mind. Within a fortnight, Nathaniel Grigg was dead, his body wasting away as if the life had been drained from him by the unseen riders of the Broken Barrow. The village buried him in the churchyard of St. Andrew's, but his grave was marked with a simple stone, no epitaph to tempt fate, for all knew his fate had been sealed by the curse he'd awakened. The tale of Nathaniel's doom spread through Challacombe like wildfire, a warning etched into the memory of every soul who worked the moor. The Broken Barrow became a place of dread, avoided even by shepherds who knew Exmoor's paths like their own hands. In the decades that followed, strange occurrences were whispered. Flickers of light atop the mound at midnight, the distant thunder of hooves on still nights, the scent of burnt earth where no fire had been. In 1673, a poacher named Elias Taverner claimed he heard the phantom horses while crossing near the barrow at dusk, their stampede driving him to his knees in prayer until they faded with the rising moon. In 1751, a dairymaid named Joan Peat swore she saw shadowy riders circling the mound, their forms indistinct, but their hooves sparking against the night, though she fled before their wrath could turn on her. By the 19th century, the barrow's curse had softened into folklore, though none dared test its truth. Antiquarians noted the mound's unusual split, perhaps a landslide, they reasoned, or a failed excavation. But none ventured to dig, wary of the spectral guardians, said to watch over it. The Broken Barrow remained untouched, its secrets buried deep, its surface scarred but unbroken save for the ancient fissure that gave it its name. Even today in Challacombe, the barrow stands, as it always has, a sombre monument on the moor, its silhouette a reminder of Nathaniel Grigg's fate. On moonless nights, when the fog rolls thick over Exmoor, some claim to hear the faint thunder of phantom horses, their hooves a warning to those who would disturb the dead. A curse as enduring as the barrow itself, keeping vigil over the ancient bones beneath the heather. Many thanks for treading this haunted tale's dark path. If its chill gripped you, like, follow, subscribe, and murmur your secrets below. Care to summon more? The coffee link below beckons. Heed its call.